Ladies and gentlemen, this is Rex, and this is Why, How, and When Did Britain Join the EU? By the channel History Matters. We talk so much about Britain leaving the EU that nobody wants to talk about how Britain came to be a member of the organization. I always assume it was from the start when EU was formed. I always wondered how Britain became a member or why Francis Charles de Gaulle vetoed Britain's entrance. Of course it did. Of course France vetoed it. Well, if you're curious and want a simple video to tell you, here's one. Yeah, okay. Well, there is a talk of Ukraine basically joining EU, and the process is kind of becoming faster now or something. I'm pretty sure I remember that in some news channel that EU is making the process much faster. Yeah, so basically, people have opinions about EU, like is it good, is it bad, right? But as far as I can see, one advantage I see of EU is the business can be run much smoother between countries, basically, right? I mean, Britain leaving the EU, biggest factor that I can see is that now the trading that's going to happen is going to be much slower at the border. Between the border of, Channel of France and Britain. What's that name? I forgot the fucking name. Yeah, basically, the trucks moving from Britain to France, now it's much slower because of the paperwork than it used to, right? So basically, this is happening every day, right? Every hour. So it's going to accumulate over time. So one major factor of EU is that there is no hard borders between countries, and that makes the, trading much, much easier. So yeah, Britain, when did the joining? I always assume it was from the start because Britain is one of the major countries and one of the biggest powers of the world. It used to, right? So I always assume Britain is going to be at the center of it when EU formed, but I don't know. So let's watch it. Remember, if you like my Rickson, don't forget to like, subscribe, so I know which type of videos to react to more. Check out the Rick Sunday, there's a link in the description, and yeah.
Probably haven't heard, but Britain voted to leave the European Union. Now, we're going to avoid that argument like it's the plague and instead ask the question, why did Britain join it in the first place? First of all, when Britain made its application to join the EU in 1961, it didn't exist. Instead, it was the EC, the European Communities, which would eventually go on to become the EU. And the important body within this was the EEC, the European Economic Community, since Britain's primary interest was economic. It consisted of these 6 members, and some were much less keen than others on Britain joining. More on that in a bit, though. So, Britain had previously focused its economic ties with its remaining imperial territories in the Commonwealth. Yet, as these nations began to shift their focus to other nations like the United States, Britain had to look for other markets. Britain had originally been opposed to any formal pan-European organisation of nations and felt that all that was needed was a free trade agreement. These negotiations for a free trade agreement fell apart pretty quickly, and when these 6 nations formed the EEC, Britain sat it out. Instead, Britain and these nations got together and created the EFTA, the European Free Trade Association, which removed some of the barriers to trade with the EEC.
So Britain from the start was opposed to any kind of a union like that. They just wanted free trade. Can you do that? I mean, can you have some kind of agreement which gives you free trade things like, basically you can trade with the countries very freely without having this kind of a European Union type of thing, right? I mean, if you just want trade, I mean, there's going to be hard borders. If you're going to be hard borders, how is it going to be smooth and free trading? I don't know what Britain was looking for there. But one thing's for damn sure, from the start, they were opposed to the union type of thing. They just wanted trading.
And thus, Britain now had a choice, either remain as part of the EFTA, known as the 7, or apply to join the EEC, known as the 6. There was pressure to do this because Britain's economy wasn't growing as fast as the rest of Europe's, and there was a fear of being left behind. And thus, in 1961, British Prime Minister Harold Macmillan went for membership. Now, applying to join the EEC didn't guarantee success, and for Britain there were 2 major obstacles. The first was the United States of America. Britain wanted to be sure that its membership at the EEC didn't contravene any American foreign policy. The second and the biggest hurdle was France, specifically President Charles de Gaulle. And in 1963 he vetoed Britain's entry into the EEC for several reasons. The first was that de Gaulle believed that Britain joining the EEC would weaken its ties to the British Commonwealth, which he felt were a vital part of containing communism. The second reason was that French-United States relations were pretty poor in the early 1960s. And thus de Gaulle was concerned that Britain would simply be a means of America directly affecting the way the EEC works. In de Gaulle's eyes, these 2 things combined meant that Britain would never properly commit to Europe in the way that, say, France or West Germany had.
Yeah, so basically around the 1960s is when the United States power on economical level at a global scale was kind of rising at a level that we know today, right? With gold standard being left behind, every currency is tied to dollar and things like that. So around this time, I guess they were looking for another alternative power with the EEC. Like United States is economical powerhouse now because of the world wars, right? They had unique advantage by now. So Europe was kind of looking with the EEC to balance the scale, I guess. Obviously that didn't work, right? The advantage the US had or still has was much immense. Only I think right now, only country that come close to, I guess, threatening that is China, if I remember correctly. But yeah.
Despite being rejected, Britain didn't give up and instead did everything they could to make future integration easier. A reason for Britain's continued interest was a concern that financially it was too reliant on the United States. In 1967, Britain again made an application to join, and again Charles de Gaulle vetoed it. His reason for this was that he felt the British pound was too unstable and that Britain would need to devalue it before entering the EEC.
Devalue it?
Prime Minister Harold Wilson didn't want to do that, and so he went on the charm offensive. And so he got the most charming man he could find, Chancellor James Callaghan, to write articles in French newspapers claiming that the French would eventually come around to Britain's way of thinking and let Britain in, but fun fact, no. Wilson, for many reasons, devalued the pound, and so with that, de Gaulle's primary reason for not wanting Britain to join was gone, and he vetoed them again. This rejection...
What? So de Gaulle thought, like, I have to find an excuse that makes it seem that, I'm not unreasonable. Devalue the pound, which they will never do, and I'll just get to veto them, right? And to his surprise, finding that, all right, fine, we'll devalue the pound. And he's like, what? I'm still going to veto. Because I was going to do that anyway. This was just an excuse. The surprising thing is Britain actually devalued the pound. First of all, the citizen, I mean, obviously companies in Britain probably profited a lot. That's how it works, like devaluing a currency. But the people suffered, right? I can't even imagine the level of panic that would have caused.
However, was condemned by the other members of the EEC, and to many in Britain it sort of felt like de Gaulle simply held a grudge. Now, Britain, not to be defeated, had two clever tricks up its sleeve. Number one was time, because de Gaulle wasn't going to be president forever, and sure enough, he wasn't. Number two was collective bargaining. In 1972, Britain made a joint application with Denmark, Ireland and Norway on the condition that if Britain didn't get in, nobody would join. And this time it was accepted by everyone except by Norway, who then stayed in the EFTA. 3 years later, Britain held a referendum to confirm whether or not it would continue its membership, and this was overwhelmingly backed by the public. The European Communities would become the European Union in 1993. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and thank you for watching, with thanks to my Patreon supporters whom you can see on screen now. And with an extra special thanks to James Bisonet, Ike, Danny Maloney...
Alright, so it lasted a few decades, I guess, right? And that's it. Britain fucked off. Who knows what kind of ramification it's going to have long time. I mean, obviously there's going to be people who's going to talk on both sides. Like, certain people are way too happy, like, yeah, Britain's going to be fine. But anybody with any kind of knowledge on how economics works, any expert, basically, even if they wanted, even themselves, they wanted to leave EU, even they are like, maybe we'll find, but I don't know. So basically there's always this threat that economy of Britain is going to suffer a lot in basically next decade or something before it kind of stabilizes, right? So yeah, I guess 1 or 2 decades in the future, it's gonna be I guess somewhat of a harsh ride, if not harsh ride, stagnant ride, right? Economy is not gonna grow much, rather than falling or something close to that. Or even if something happens that grows the Britain economy, it wouldn't grow as much as it would have, or something like that, because all experts are basically envisioning some kind of a problem. I mean, it makes sense. If you leave EU, you're leaving free trade in a way, right? And I guess the recent discussion that there was, like how to manage this, didn't go very well with Boris Johnson or something. So yeah, the terms are kind of fucked up too. So I don't know what's gonna happen. But yeah. Right, well, this was why, how and when did Britain join the EU by the channel History Matters. If you like my reaction, don't forget to like, subscribe. So I know which type of videos to react to more. I love history, right? I like how algorithms finally picking up on my history reactions, so I can do more history videos. But yeah, I'm looking to split up my channel with general videos, gaming type of videos in one channel, and history, science type of videos in other. But yeah, I guess we'll see. Alright, I'll see you next time.